for those. Okay. I'm sorry. We started recording a little bit late. We're on the Zayin Aleph, and the second one has a kedusha of Kisvei HaKodesh. It's considered part of the Tanakh. So here it says, Rabbi says, Kahalas is not. Kahalas, any time I say Yadayim, Kahalas is not Kisvei HaKodesh. And we said that Tumas Yadayim has to do with the fact that they made Xer Rabbanon that if Truma touches Kisvei HaKodesh, it becomes Tameh, and so too if your hands touch Kisvei HaKodesh. So even though it sounds like it's not a good thing to be in Tamas Sayadayim, but that's another way of saying that it's Kisvei HaKodesh.
That was part of the
So you're talking already what you know nowadays. That's considered part of the 24. But it wasn't so simple. Rav Meir says that it doesn't have Kedusha of this Kisvei HaKodesh. Machlokes b'Shir Hashirim and Machlokes b'Shama b'Yisrael would be if Shir Hashirim is Kisvei HaKodesh enough. But everybody else calls us not, and Shir Hashirim was also Machlokes.
But at the end, we know that it's
yeah, you know the end already. But see what's happening. Enjoy the. Rav Yossi Yom Shir Hashirim Tamas Sayadayim Machlokes b'Kalas. The other way, Yossi says everybody else that Shir Hashirim if he's considered Kisvei HaKodesh, and Machlokes is Kalas. Means he's more Kisvei HaKodesh. Rav Meir said everybody else Kalas not. Machlokes Shir Hashirim. Rav Yossi says Kalas is a Machlokes Shir Hashirim. Everybody else that is. Rav Shimon Omer Kalas Mikul B'Shamai Mechum B'Bisela. Kalas is a Machlokes according to B'Shamai. It's not the Tamei Sayadayim. It's not Kisvei HaKodesh. And B'Sel says that it is. Aval Rus V'Shir Hashirim V'Estem V'Tamei Sayadayim. But the other books, Shir Hashirim, and he says Rosh and Ruas and Esther is considered Kisvei HaKodesh. So this whole brisa, Rav Meir, Rav Yossi, Rav Shimon, everybody said no question about Esther. Nobody spoke about Esther. Everybody says that Esther is B'Tamei Sayadayim. So how could Shmuel say that Esther is not Kisvei HaKodesh? The Gemara says we have Rav Yeshua top of the page. Udamak Rav Yeshua. We said that according to Yeshua, the Drush about Ksov Zos according to the Sefer that according to Yeshua's Drush, Ksov Zos is going on B'Shalach. Zikaron is going on Kiseitse. Sefer is going on Shmuel, and there's no more left. So according to Rabbi Yeshua, he's the one that we could see might hold that the Esther is not part of Kisvei HaKodesh, and Shmuel seems to hold like him. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa of Shimon ben Asi Omer, Kahelas Eni B'Tamei Sayadayim Neshach Moshe Shel Shlomo. This goes the more going on a side point about Kahelas, which is not our subject, but once we brought it in, the Gemara brings the Machlokes. Kahelas is not a kedusha. Rabbi Shimon ben Asi also holds that Kahelas does not have kedusha of Kisvei HaKodesh because it says it's Shlomo's wisdom. It's wisdom of Shlomo, but it's not Kisvei HaKodesh. Amulov v'chizu b'lvad Amar. So they told him it can't be because it's not the only thing that he said. This is what he wrote down. He had other wisdoms also. He said 3,000 mishalim. And he said very, very much wisdom. How come he wrote this down? It must be this is special, and this is Kisvei HaKodesh. So this is a time against Rav Shimon ben Manasseh that Kahelas is Kisvei HaKodesh. For Omer and the Rai number 2 that it is Kisvei HaKodesh. Al Tosp Al Dvarov. Don't add on to his words. By the way, this is the word Al Tosp. It has a end of pay. Usually you don't have that. Usually a peso fit is usually a pay. Happens to be a pay over there. Al Tosp. Don't add on to his words. That means whatever he wrote down, he wrote down. Whatever he didn't, he didn't. So there's a distinction that whatever he wrote, for the Chacham it's a pay. It has a dot in it. There's a pay over there. My Omer. Two psukim in order to prove this point that Kahelas is considered Kisvei HaKodesh, because the first pasuk is not such a raya. It says that he said 3,000 mishalim, and the more I thought that's a raya that the ones that he wrote are considered special. But you might say Amar, he said many 3,000. Some wanted to write, some didn't want to write, but that doesn't mean that's because he wrote it that it makes it Kisvei HaKodesh. Tashma that whatever he wrote down, don't write anymore. That means that whatever's written is nafka. So that was a side point which is not our subject. That the Machlokes is about Kahelas. If Kahelas is Tamei Sayadayim or not, just to say the halacha, like Moshe said before, that we all the 24 books that we have, they're all considered Kisvei HaKodesh, and all Tamei Sayadayim, they all have the kedusha of Kisvei HaKodesh. And megillah says also, it wasn't Machlokes. Shmuel said not, but it seems that that's only according to Yeshua, but the other Tanam hold yet, and it seems that we hold that Esther is also Tamei Sayadayim. Also Esther also has the Kisvei HaKodesh. The Gemara goes into the subject about Esther if it was said B'Ruach HaKodesh, which now the Gemara is going into the simple point, not about Kisvei HaKodesh, but the author, did he have Ruach HaKodesh? The one who wrote it, did he have Ruach HaKodesh to know more than the human intellect? So
why doesn't it make a difference if it has Ruach HaKodesh? For sure Kodesh. We finished now, it's Kodesh.
The Gemara had before that even if you hold that it was never Ruach HaKodesh, it also could be that it was not Kisvei Kodesh. It could be another way. What's the difference? I don't know. I don't know. Why is it not relevant to know if the author had Ruach HaKodesh when he wrote the book or not? The Gemara is going to be many proofs, and the Gemara is going to disprove some of them, and some of them are going to remain. Tanya Balaz Omer, Esther Ruach HaKodesh Nemra. Esther was said in Ruach HaKodesh means the author had Ruach HaKodesh when he wrote it. How do you know? Haman said in his heart. How do you know what someone said in his heart? How did the author know? Oh, it must be that he had Ruach HaKodesh. Over there it says, he said in his heart, when the king asked him, how should I reward the man? So he told them they should bring a horse and a horse. So the pasuk says that Haman said in his heart, he must be talking about me. So how did he know? How did the author know? It must be that the author had Ruach HaKodesh. But the Gemara is going to say other possibilities. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Esther Ruach HaKodesh Nemar. Rabbi Akiva has a different proof that Esther was there with Ruach HaKodesh by the author. Shenema Vati Esther no says that Esther found favor in everybody's eyes. How do you know? How did the author know what everybody thought? Because he had Ruach HaKodesh. But may Omer Esther Ruach HaKodesh Nemar Shenema Vayivoda Adavola Mordechai. Here it doesn't talk about Mamish the author, but it means how did Mordechai find out? Over there it says that there was a decree that was given out and not everybody knew. It was still seemed like it was secret. And Mordechai found out about it. How did he find out about it? It doesn't say. So it must be that Mordechai had Ruach HaKodesh. This is a little different than the rest of them. The rest of them was talking about the author. The author who wrote the book. It could be Esther and Mordechai. They wrote the book, but here it talks about in the story that Mordechai found out. Not about the author of the book, but as much as in the story, Mordechai found out because he had Ruach HaKodesh. Rabbi Yossi ben the Miskis Omer, different raya. As to Ruach HaKodesh Nemar, Shenema Uvavizah Lo Shalchu Es Yadam. When the Jews fought against the Goyim, so it says they didn't take any of the spoils. How do you know that no Jew took any of the spoils? It must be that they had Ruach HaKodesh. The author had Ruach HaKodesh. That was the raya we had already four. We had Rabbi Eliezer, then Rabbi Akiva, then Rabbi Meir, and then Rabbi Yossi ben the Miskis. Four rayas that Esther had, the author had Ruach HaKodesh.
Excuse me, each one is not necessarily disproving the other.
Right. Each one has said what they think, but it doesn't say the other one is wrong. Why yes, but not that the other one is wrong. Not the Gemara is going to say a better one. If I would have been there in that discussion, I would have said something which is better than all of them. I have a better right than everybody. Over there, the Pasuk means that the Jews accepted what Mordechai had decreed. Kimu, but the Drash says Kimu Lamala Masha Kimu Lamata, that in heaven they affirmed what the Jews accepted in the earth. So the fact that somebody knows what is happening in the heaven, that means they have Ruach HaKodesh. So that's a proof. Shmuel to Shmuel, that's going to be the proof. The Drash is going to be the proof that the author had Ruach HaKodesh. He knew what he was doing in heaven. Rabbi says that really the rest of them you could disprove. Besides Shmuel you can't disprove. I'm not going to go through all the proofs, the other four proofs, and says why they're disprovable. The Rabbi Eliezer, what was Rabbi Elezer's proof? Because it says that Haman said in his heart. How do you know? How do you know what he's thinking? No, you could say Svarahu. The author could have figured it out without Ruach HaKodesh. There was nobody chashuv in the palace over there to the king besides higher than Haman. Haman is the highest. If he's asking for such big reward, it must be he's asking for himself. Somebody says a pshat. I'm not sure if it's nice in the Gemara that if it would have been for somebody else, if Haman would have thought that it's for somebody else, he would have told him to make him a higher position. The fact that he didn't ask for a higher position is because he was the highest already. Haman was the Mishnah Melech, so he couldn't go any higher. So the fact that he asked for such big things, it must be he's asking for himself. Maybe that's why the Gemara also right. The Svar means that could be the author figured it out. Must be me, because you can tell from the story that he thought that he's asking about for himself. But so that's not a proof. The Rabbi Akiva's proof was because it says that everybody saw Esther. She found favor, and how do you know what everybody thought? The Rabbi Akiva, maybe Rabbi Eliezer is right, and he says a different shot. That doesn't mean because of Ruach HaKodesh. Each person, it seemed that Esther was from their nationality. Each one said that she must be a Persian, she must be a Median. So you see that each person, all the nations were saying she looks like our nationality. That's how he knew that she found favor in everybody's eyes. And how did Rabbi Meir? What was that issue? How did Mordechai? How did Mordechai find out? That's not a kasha. That's not the Ruach HaKodesh. That they were two people from Tarsh. They spoke a different language, and they didn't think anybody understood the language, but Mordechai did. So that's how he found out, not because he had Ruach HaKodesh, he found out because he spoke the language. But Rabbi Yosef ben Demiskis, what was the point of Babizolo Sholchu as Yadam? That how did the author know that nobody took any spoils? The Ilma Pristik Yishoder. Maybe they sent shluchim. They sent shluchim back to Mordechai Nester to say that no Jews took any of the spoils. So it didn't have to be Dafka that Ruach HaKodesh. All the four proofs are disproven, but the Shmuel Vadai less like But Shmuel, who said that they knew what's doing in heaven, to say Kimu Lamala Mashkiblu Lamata, that there's surely no way to know what a Ruach HaKodesh. So his proof is the best. That's how the saying goes. It's better to have one hot pepper than a bunch of cucumbers. It means one good one is better than a lot of not good ones. So even though there were four other proofs, but Shmuel is the best. If Yosef goes on to say more proofs, even more than Shmuel. This sounds maybe even stronger. I don't see a machlokes between the two of them, both talking about the same pasuk, but it says that the days of Purim are never going to pass from the Jews. That's the future. How do you know it's going to be in the future? How can somebody write in the megillah that the days of Purim are never going to pass away? The commemoration is never going to stop from all their seed. How do you know such a thing? It must be Ruach HaKodesh, and this is without a drash. This is already pshat. Shmuel is based on a drash that Kimu Lamala Masha Kimu Lamata, but this is even a pshat. So the Gemara comes out all these sources that Esther was said by some of the proofs are disproven, but the Gemara does come out that the Esther was written with Ruach HaKodesh, but the fact is it considered Kisvei HaKodesh, that the Gemara says not necessarily is it dependent on this, even though it was written, the story and the author was written by Ruach HaKodesh, it doesn't mean that it's Kisvei HaKodesh, and the Gemara does make a machlokus out of it, between the Tanam of Yeshua that says, Ksof Zosikorim B'Sefer is not going, is already the three that it says already, not supposed to be a fourth time, so according to them it might not be Ruach HaKodesh, maybe there's a small holes, but the rest of the Tanam seem to say that everything is Ruach HaKodesh, is Kisvei HaKodesh, all 24 books, and that's how we paskin. The Rambam, I think, paskins that all 24 books are considered Kisvei HaKodesh as far as Tumas Yadayim. The Gemara continues on the bottom of the page, Matanas Levyonim. So the way the Mishnah comes in is over here, is talking about Adar Rishon. How did the Mishnah get into the subject that if someone did Matanas Levyonim and Adar Rishon, you're not Yotzei? So that's true. But now the Gemara takes the opportunity to talk about the halacha of Matanas Levyonim. Here's where we talk about Matanas Levyonim, Mashlach Manos. This is the study over here. Tani Rav Yosef, from Mashlach Manos Shishra Yeyu, sending portions a man to his fellow man. Shtei Manos le'ish echad. The pasuk says Manos ish l'reyeyu. So he's sending it to one man, and it says Manos, sending more portions. That's where you learn out 2 portions to one person. That's the halacha of Shlach Manos. You're supposed to send 2 portions to one person. But Matanos Levyonim, Shtei Matanos l'shnei bnei Adam. Over there it says Matanos Levyonim, presents to poor, plural. So that means 2 to 2, which means one to each one. 1 present per person, and this is based on the pasuk that in the mashmos of the pasuk alone, we see Mishlach Manos means 2 presents to 1 person, and Matanas Levyonim means 2 presents to 2 people, 1 per person. Now, Gemara says some stories about Mishlach Manos. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Shada Lei Rabbi Hoshaya Atma de Igla Tilsa V'Garba de Chamra. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya sent to Rabbi Hoshaya a thigh of a third calf. They talk about third born. Whatever the point will be, it's a chashava, egel mishaleshes. It's a Rashi says shlishi lebeten. The third born is supposed to be the best. A thigh, tend him a thigh of an animal, of a calf, and also a barrel of wine. Shalach lei, he sent back to him. He sent back to Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, Kiyamta banu rabbeinu u'mishlach manos ish l'reyeyu. They take out the gears of Matanas Levyonim, some of them take it out. If you take out these words of Matanas Levyonim, what did he say? You makayim shalach manos. So what's the chiddush? He sent him a thigh of an animal, a piece of big meat like a thigh, and a barrel of wine. Then he said, "You makayim shalach manos." That's no chiddush in that. Is there any chiddush in that story? Some say that maybe you do see that wine is considered a manah, that even a drink is also good enough. It doesn't have to be dafka food. But there's a different gear, so that maybe makes it a bit easier. Some take out the mishlach manos and say, Kiyamta banu rabbeinu matanas levyonim. That he sent him such a chashuv thing, but he said it's only matanas levyonim. Why is that? So Ben Chananel over here, that's the point that Ben Chananel, Kiyamta banu rabbeinu matanas levyonim. Klomar, the sinas evyonim nosatali, mana achas. They only gave us one thing. They only gave me one thing, and that's the yorech. So even though he gave also a barrel of wine, he didn't consider that. Maybe he holds that wine is not good according to this. He said, you only did matanas levyonim. The Gersa says, according to this, Egel, he sent him the whole calf. The Gimel Kakanayan. He sent him the whole calf together with 3 barrels of wine. So maybe if you say the point is that the wine is not good enough, so that means that the whole calf is going to be good enough, even if a thigh is not. So is a thigh of a calf? How much is that? How much meat is that? A thigh of a calf? It sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot. That wasn't good enough, but they sent the whole calf. That was enough. So this Gemara, at least in the first Gemara, they told him you Makayim Shlach Manas. It's a little strange. Like, of course, that was Shlach Manas. Any Chiddush over there. Even if you say that the wine is a Chiddush, it's still the Gemara doesn't emphasize it. According to this Gersa, that he sold him, he only gave him Tanas Levyonim. It's not good enough. He only sent us one thing. So you have to figure out what's not good about it. Is it because the wine is not good or the?
And I just have maybe a pshat you could say that it has to be two different things. So if it's just the thighs, it's one type of meat.
But different types of meat is good enough. In the animal, there'll be different types of meat, but one type of meat, even though it's a lot, it's only one type, maybe. But that's
Even if
interesting.
it's cooked differently?
What?
Cooked
If it's cooked differently, the Gemara talks about sometimes based on Chuyin. The Gemara talks about by Yisur. Maybe if it's cooked differently, maybe it's also considered two types. That's interesting. The post can probably talk about that. Okay, so that's interesting. Gemara. The Gemara continues more stories about Mishloach Manas. Rabbi Shad Rabbi is sending to Mori Bamar, and Abai is the Shliach. Abai was a Talmud of Rabbi. Also, I think that he was Yossam when he was raised by Rabbi. So Rabbi is sending Abai to give Shlach Manas to Mori Bamar. And what did he send him? Malo Taska the Kashba. Then I pronounce that. Malo Kasa the Kimcha Davshona. Sackful of dates. Rashi says Kasba is dates, and also a cupful of Kimcha Davishuna. Kimcha Davishuna, Rashi says, is flour made out of dried wheat. And Rashi says that it becomes sweet. The fact that they dry the wheat, so the kemach that they make out of it, the flour that comes out of that is a sweet. That the Gemara is going to say soon that these were sweet things. So he sent him dates and flour. So Abaye told Rabba, who's the sender, when the Rabba told Abaye, take this, the Mori Bamar, so Abaye told him that the recipient, Mori Bamar, is going to say that when a farmer becomes a king, he doesn't take the basket off of his neck. That means that you used to be poor, but now you're the Rosh Hashiva. So it's not enough. He's sending him four things, sending him dates and flour. That's not what the Rosh Hashiva should be sending. So, but it seems Rabbi didn't listen to him. Rabbi still sent him. I sent that. And then and then the return, he asked Abai also that the Mori Bamar, when he received the Shlach Manas, so he told Abai to be a shliach also on the way back. And he sent him Malo Taska de Zangvila or Malo Kasa de Topalta Aricha. He sent him a sackful of Zangvil, ginger, and a cupful of long peppers. And Abai also had criticism about that. And now he told Mori Bamar that Rabbi was going to say that I sent him sweet things and he's sending me back sharp things.
Who said this was a criticism? Maybe it was a nice law.
He had a comment. Okay, he had a comment to say. No, it sounds like he's saying that he's going to say that I sent sweet things, sending me back something that's not fitting. The first one he said that's not fitting. He's sending him the poor man's Mashlach Manas. He's supposed to send the rich man's Shalach Manas. And the second point, he said that they're sweet. I should back also sweet. He's sending it back sharp. That sounds like
sweet is better than sharp. I mean,
he's going to say, but he says he's going to say if Rabbi's going to say I sent him this, he's going to send me back that. That sounds like it's kind of like
Zangvil is something that's ready to eat at this point.
So the poskim say that it's supposed to be something ready to eat. That's how the poskim go. So they'll say that yes, that it's ready to eat.
But this was something that would be the flavor of it, or they were candied. Zangvil or something like that.
Probably wasn't candy, but you're saying that Zangvil alone the way it is not edible as is.
It's not edible in its raw form.
The Gemara says that if it's lach, it is. The Gemara in Bracha says that you say bracha on it if it's moist. If it's dry, then it's not. Yeah, the Gemara talks about if you say bracha or not, it's considered. Which bracha do you say is it considered edible? So the Gemara says Zangvil lach. The Gemara says is. Maybe farms change nowadays, but the Gemara says that is considered edible.
Well, that definitely is sharp.
Right.
That would be.
Sharp. That the Gemara says is sharp.
You can cook it for 20 minutes, half an hour, would be okay. But
that's not.
The Gemara doesn't. These points that the poskim say it has to be ready to eat. Here the Gemara doesn't. The Gemara doesn't say it. I don't think the Gemara says so. Okay. The Gemara talks about in Beitza when it talks about sending what you're allowed to send on Yontif. It has to be something which is preparable on Yontif, even if it's not ready to eat. But as long as you're allowed to do it on Yontif, so it will be a chiddush to say that you have to send something which is already edible on Purim, as long as he's able to cook it on Purim. You're allowed to cook. So it'll be a chiddush to me. That Shlach Manas is only if it's ready to eat as is. Maybe I don't know where the person get it from.
If it's ready to eat, maybe.
But I don't know where the person get it from. If they say so. Next Gemara, Amar Abaye. The Gemara says I got the Gemara about the story here that again. Rabba sent Abaye to the house of Mori Bamar, and the Gemara is going to say now that Mori Bamar was rich, and we'll see what Abaye. Amar Abaye. Kinafki mi beimar, when I left the house of Rabba, means he went from Rabba's house to Mori Bamar, have a savannah, I was full. But when I got over there, they gave me so much food, and I ate everything. Kimatai lasam kribuli shitin soy the shitin mine kidera v'achlibu shitin peluge. When I got there, when I got to Mori Bamar, they gave me previously. They approached me. They gave to me 60 plates of 60 different kinds of food, and I ate 60 portions. The word 60, the number 60 is usually using an exaggeration, but it means he ate a lot. And the bishula basraisa correlates likeda. The last dish they called it pot roast. Well, boy, lemecha saw basra. I wanted to eat the plate even. It was so delicious. I wanted to even eat the plate. Of course, there's an exaggeration in all this, but it says that even though he thought that he was full, when he came there, they gave him such food that he ate everything. Abai said that's how that expression goes. The poor man is hungry and he doesn't even realize it. That I thought I was full. And my standard of being full, I was full. Then I got there, I saw I didn't even start there. Another expression people say is that there's always room for something sweet. Ravcha is room. The besima shriya. Besima we'll see means sweet. The more soon is going to mean something else. But here the word besima means sweet. It means that you always for dessert. There's always room for dessert, even if somebody's full. But then you give him a good thing to eat. So then also they gave him a lot of good foods, delicacies, so he was able to eat it. The Gemara says more halachas about shalach manas. These two people, they would switch sudas with each other. Rashi says it means that one year he would eat by him, and they'd become the mitzvah that he was. It doesn't say, but it says that they switched their sudas with each other. And Rashi says 1 year he gave to him, the next year he gave to him. So l'chora, only the sender is Yotzei, the recipient is not l'chora. And 1 year he was Yotzei, the other year he was Yotzei. The Rambam says it means the same year. That two here, the Rabbi he's saying that they're poor. That two people, they could switch with each other, and each one's become shalach manos, even though he got back whatever the same amount that he sent. But you Yotzei. So two people, this could be if they're poor and they can't afford to give something, but they are Yotzei if they switch with each other. New Gemara, everybody knows this. A person is obligated to the besume. Rashi says to get drunk, but they say that the word literally doesn't mean that. Whatever the word the besume means. On Purim is Purim, until he doesn't know between Orham, of course, there's someone and blesses Mordechai. So what does that mean? Everybody has all kinds of shatan. I don't know. But the Arizal says that the Chayv Adam Lebasume, he says yes, but he says don't get drunk. So the Arizal says that. So okay, so whatever it means, he says it's not a contradiction to getting drunk. It's not a contradiction to not getting drunk. Okay, famous story. Rabbi Zera Abdu Suda Spor Badi Adadi. Rabbi and Abzera, they made a Suda together on Purim. If some, both of them drank. Come Rabbi Shachtei Rabbi Zera. Rabbi slaughtered Rabbi Zera. If you want to take it literal, some don't take it literal. But it says Rabbi slaughtered Rabbi Zera. The next day he davened and he revived him. Lishana, next year, Amalei Nesimav never Suda Spor Badi Adadi. So Rabbi again invited Rabbi Zera. Let's make a Suda together. Amalei Rabbi Zera declined. It doesn't always happen a miracle. It means that the miracle that I got revived this year doesn't mean last year, doesn't mean that's going to happen again. So they don't want to do it again. Agav, the Rebbeinu Ephraim, one of the Rishonim says that because of the story that he shechted him, so we don't pass him like this Gemara. They're not supposed to drink so much because you see that it comes to danger. But the Prichada, she says it's not. On the contrary, the Gemara says the next year they wanted to do it again. So he says that, so it's not true that you do pass him. You do pass him like Chavad in Ishta B'Sumei. But again, the Rizal says not to become drunk. What does that mean? I don't know. The Gemara continues. Amar Rava, Sudas Purim Shachla B'Layla LaYaseh Echavasi. You don't fulfill the obligation of having a Sudas Purim if you ate it at night. The Eva Purim, it has to be dafki in the daytime. Aga, people make it even at the next night. People go into the next night. That's l'chora after Purim. What do? They make the Suda after Purim.
They make it right before Shkia.
And the main Suda is after Purim.
Right.
So I don't get it. Like it's after Purim. Purim is over. The Purim should be the Suda should be.
They go to work and then they come home.
So it's after
No,
Purim.
but they start
before Shkia.
They start
Mamish before
wash.
Shkia, but after Purim is over. After Purim, it's over. So
The only shot I like a limit schus I have is because the mitzvah with the 15th, they're doing 14th, so they.
okay.
No, but they started. Once they started, and then when they benched, they would say Purim.
It could be that you still say Al Nisim, but does that mean that that's because the Suda started doing Purim? Does that mean that that's the Suda's Purim? The whole everything that all the Divrei Torah and all the shikha and everything they're doing, it's already after Purim. The train left. So I don't know. I don't know what to say.
I think the brother is supposed to have bribed the Suda by.
Oh, that makes sense. At
By
least
the
row.
way, once mentioning
Row
that,
Suda what?
Row, most of the
By
Suda,
day.
most of the Suda should be
by the way,
in the
they'd say that once saying this, it's the same thing by Shal Shudas. It should be Rav Suda before.
L'chora,
Before Shkia.
yeah. Just the point that, but I just said that now because it came, but the Gemara doesn't mean that. The Gemara means that you're not Yotze the night before. It means when it's really Purim, but you might think
Right.
Yotze at night, you're not Yotze at night. You have to read the Megillah at night, but you're not Yotze the Purim. This is this Purim. My time, what's the reason that you're not Yotze in the night time? You may mishta v'simcha ksiv. It says you may mishta, so be days of simcha. So you may mishta, the word you may, that tells us it has to be in the daytime. Rav Ashi have Yosef Kamei de Rav Kano or a different Meimar. No Gav also Rabbana. Rav Ashi was sitting in front of a Meimar or Rav Kano, whatever the Gersa is, and in the morning of Purim, and the regular time they start learning whatever it is, 9 o'clock, and nobody came. The people didn't come to the regular time of learning. So he was wondering why not. My time also Rabbana. So Rav Kano asked, how come the Rabbana didn't come? So he told him, Dilma treated the Sudas Purim. Maybe they're eating the Sudas Purim. That's what Agav you see can do in the morning right away. That the Sudas Purim doesn't have to be in the afternoon. The Sudas Purim they did it in the morning. So maybe they're eating the Sudas Purim. That's why they didn't come on time to the yeshiva. They could have eaten it last night. Why'd they have to come and miss yeshiva for? They should have eaten it last night and come in the morning. So he said, you don't know that you're not supposed to eat at night. You just finish saying, they did not hear, the Rebbe didn't hear, but Rebbe said they did not Yossi at night. That's why they couldn't do it at night. They had to do it now. Amalei, the question in the gears over here, or whatever the gears is, he says, that's so. Amalei in, whatever the question is, but he said he didn't know that. Tanamine, Arbon Zimden, Vidamid like Commander Manach Bekise. He chazed it 40 times, he reviewed it 40 times until it was to him as if it was in his pocket. That means he reviewed it many times, 40 times, until he felt like he had a grasp on it. Even though
But you have to have the suit in the day.
Yeah, suit in the day. That if you do the suit that night, you're not Yotze. So he chazed it 40 times. A simple Allah. Just a simple Allah. You may wish to have a simcha has to be dark in the daytime, and you're not Yotze to suit that night. You see, the chazed 40 times, even a simple Allah, just to say it over 40 times. I had a Rebbe once, I remember Kaplan, he said such a simple thing, and the chazed 40 times, he said a certain Mishnah, he said, if you want to, the chazed is 40 times today. It'll take a few minutes. How long does it take? You go down the street, even the simple thing, you see, it doesn't have to be complicated, it's simple. So that's how you're supposed to chazed, to review something again and again. So what we learned so far, that was all about Mishloach Manos, and the first Gemara spoke about, we'll review at the end. We'll just continue, we'll review at the end. Next Mishnah. So the rest of the parak now comes in as a bonus because the Mishnah before said, Ein Bein, Adu Rishon, Adu Sheni, only Mikra Megillah and Matanas Avyonim. The only difference between the first Adar, if you have two Adars, Adu Rishon, Adu Sheni, is only we pass Agav that you're not Yotze in Adu Rishon, which is different than the Mishnah. Maybe fit into the Mishnah. The Gemara said yesterday that you're not Yotze even Abba Parshios either. The first Adar is not considered the Adar. You have to have Abba Parshios and Mikra Megillah, Matanas Avyonim. Everything has to be in Adu Sheni. Because of that, Ein Bein was Zocha to a whole list of Ein Beins. That whenever the Mishnahs go here on tangents of different subjects, and we're going to go on the tangent. There's no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos, only if it has to do with doing malacha for food. Ochel nefesh. Ochel nefesh means food, whatever you have to do for food. And that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Rashi points out that, of course, as far as the punishment for doing Avera is much more severe on Shabbos. Shabbos is skila, Yom Tov is only allowed. So that the Mishnah doesn't mean. The Mishnah doesn't mean as far as the punishment. There's a big difference. But as far as what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, so the permission on Yom Tov is to do things for food, and on Shabbos you're not allowed. And the Gemara explains that's the only difference is Ochel Nefesh. But as far as everything else, is no difference. What does that mean? Machshiri Ochel Nefesh means that's not to prepare food, but it's a step before. Something that didn't know the food, which the example Rashi gives over here from Maseches Beitza. Is it Beitza? I think so. Over there it talks about fixing the knife. You have to have a knife, you have to have an oven. That's a step before. But in order to spit whatever you need in order to cook. So that Amish knows that you're not allowed to do Yom Tov either. I think most of the people about that, some you are allowed to. My sister looked up. If so, Amish is against Rav Yehuda because Rav Yehuda holds that you are allowed to do not only for the actual food, but even for the preparation of it's the step before. The Tanya ain't Yom Tov l'Shabbos Ochel Nefesh. That's Tanakama, same as our Mishnah. That whole difference that's permissible one Yom Tov is only if it's for food. Rav Yehuda Mati Af Machshir Ochel Nefesh. Rav Yehuda is more permissive. He says even allowed to do malacha for the step before, for the preparation in order to make the food, in order to be able to make the food. My time in Tanakam, not Gemara goes into the drushes. Why time say that they're not allowed to do machshir yochel nefesh. Who below machshir? It says only what's made for food. That alone is allowed to be done for you on Yantif. So he says who levado? Who is coming to be mamai, coming to say less below machshir? That you're not only allowed to do for the food itself, but you're not allowed to do the preparation the step before. You learn out that you are allowed to, because it says the word lachem is coming to say for you, which is a kind of a reboot. It's coming to include that you're allowed to do more. It's coming to include whatever you need, even the preparation a step before. Now the Gemara goes in each one what to do with the other pasuk. On one hand it says who, on the other point it says lachem. What does Tanakama do with the word lachem? He says you're not allowed to do the preparation before, only for the actual food. He says the word lachem is not coming to be marba, it's coming also to be mamait, only for Jews. But you're not allowed to do malacha for goyim, even for food, and you're not allowed to do malacha for dogs, for animals, even for food. And everyone agrees to that, by the way. Everyone agrees that you're not allowed to do malacha for a goy or for animals, only for Jews. The Rabbi Yehuda that says you're allowed to, what does he do with the pasuk that says who, they're coming to be mamait something? The answer is ksiv hu or ksiv lachem. He says it says both. It says a ribu and a mil. Kan b'machshir and shev shel asos me'av yantiv. Kan b'machshir and shev shel asos me'av yantiv. That Rabbi says I that I permit to do machshir yochel nefesh. That's only if it wasn't possible to do it before yantiv. But if you could have done it, you just didn't. So then I also read that you're not allowed to do it on yantiv. Rashi gives an example. If the knife got bent out of shape, where's the Rashi? Knife. So it says depends. If it wasn't if me'av yantiv, you could have done it before. You could have fixed it. So then you should have done it before Yantif. But if it got broken on Yantif, then you would be allowed to fix it according to Yantif.
That would be who? That's a little who.
Who would say
not Arab, because you could have done it on Arab.
Right. And Lachem says that you may, if you couldn't have done it earlier, then you may. And the Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda. We hold that you are allowed to do machshir yochel nefesh. If you couldn't have done it before, then you're allowed to do machshir yochel nefesh on Yantif also.
The whole thing about mitoch, it's not part of this. Yeah.
I don't think so.
That's an expansion of.
That's saying that something is mutter is ochel nefesh, then it's mutter even things that are not ochel nefesh, as long as it's a sarach yantiv. So you're saying that this subject about machshir should be mutter as much as anything else is. Here we're talking about saying that amalacha, which is mutter. These are things that might not be mutter for ochel nefesh. Over there it says amalacha, which is mutter for ochel nefesh. Then you'd be allowed to do it even not. Even if it's as long as it's. But these are kind of malacha that not necessarily is done for the food. It's not that malacha which is done for food. We're not going to say every malacha you're allowed to do because you're allowed to do malacha for food. A certain malacha, let's say making a fire or carrying, that you're allowed to do for food, you'd be allowed to do also not for food if it's a sarach yantiv. But now we're talking about the kind of malachas that don't come into actual food, like building. Let's say the malacha of building. You don't build by making food. When you make food, you don't build. That's not a malacha which is going to be mutter for food. So you won't be able to expand it to other things. And the next Mishnah is about Shabbos and Yom Kippur. The Mishnah we just said was about Shabbos and Yom Tov. Now we go into Shabbos and Yom Kippur.
Why do you call this a bonus? I mean, it's not to do with pepper.
I mean, there ain't nothing to do with megillah.
I mean, we're getting new subjects.
We're going on a cruise because we said Ein Bain. Now we're going on a cruise of Ein Bain. It's the Ein Bain route. Nothing to do with
We're
megillah.
happier to be in Purim when you're in Purim. So
The Mishnah was the Mishnah. Gemara was that we're going on a tangent. So now we're on a tangent of Ein Bain, and we took all the shas, whatever it is, Ein Bain, and put them all together, concentrated into one parak. They ended the first parak of Mesachas Megillah.
I think it for memory's reasons.
It's good for memory. Yeah. Ein Bain Shabbos Yom Kippur. Melash Zez don't be the other. Zez don't be Kodesh. There's no difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur. Now over here, it's not talking about what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. There is no difference at all between Shabbos and Yom Kippur. What you're not allowed, whatever you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, not on Yom Kippur. The Mishnah before, by Shabbos and Yom Tov, was not talking about the punishment. It was talking about what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Here it's talking about after the punishment. As far as what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, there's no difference at all. But Mishnah is talking about the punishment. That the punishment of Shabbos is more severe than the punishment of doing the malacha on Yom Kippur. Elish is don't be the other, was don't be koresh. That the Shabbos, the punishment is going to be by earthly court, that they kill him, skila. And Koresh, and on Yom Kippur, there's no skila, there's no capital punishment. It's Koresh, heavenly excision. The Gemara says, but the application of Tashluma means that's what the concept called that if somebody did an act that he incurred upon himself two penalties, a penalty of payment and also a penalty of death. The famous case is that somebody shot and killed. So he killed somebody. Also, he tore a suit. He made a hole. In it. So does he also have to pay the yorshim for the suit? whatever. I'm saying a funny example, but okay. But does he have to pay for the suit? He also damaged. So that's called kamei b'drabin. If there was one act, the same act of shooting the arrow, the bullet, that did two things, that incurred upon himself a death penalty and also monetary payment. Sorry that we got knocked off for a minute. And if we're back on. So if somebody did an act that was not a capital punishment, but it was a chayv koros, and at the same thing, he did something which damaged.
Right.
They want to say like I think the case they give is if somebody burned somebody's barn down on Yom Kippur. So making the fire, all that's a malacha, and he's chayiv koros, and also he damaged. Does he get the p'tur of kamei b'drabin because he's chayiv koros? So our Mishnah says there's no difference only as far as b'dei adam, the punishment is b'dei adam with the koros, and the Gemara says that our Mishnah would hold halin tashlum is zevazeh shavin, that as far as the p'tur of payment, there's no difference between if it's capital punishment or if it's heavenly punishment. Our Mishnah is like a B'choni ben Akana that says that a chiv koros is also enough to take off the punishment, the monetary punishment.
Sorry, the Indian Testament means what?
As far as payment of this case, we did an act that incurred upon himself
of the other thing,
of the mazik, or the payment, the money payment, the monetary payment. That there's no difference. That both of them, no difference if it was a capital punishment that he incurred together with the payment. Is also part of it. Even if it's only a koros, together with the payment, it's also part of the payment.
It's the second highest in the alachit. It's the second
With the
highest.
skila, sreif, hereg, v'chenek.
No, all four are in one category.
If you want to do
The
it
one
like that.
before that is koros.
Yeah, heavenly punishment. Okay, that's
So it means it's
Yeah, but
really
it's not-
higher than damaging a suit.
no. But who says there's a p'tur of damaging a suit if he don't get koros? Maybe he has to get a real punishment, a real capital
so
punishment in order to be putter from.
But it is chamer there. It's,
Yeah, that's not the point. Malchus is also more chamer than
Rabbi.
Malchus is also more chamer than that's not called chamer Rabbi. We're talking about a death penalty, so it's an earthly death or even heavenly death. So the B'choni ben Akana holds that even a heavenly death is enough to pater him from the payment. The Tanya of the B'choni ben Akana says Yom Kippurim k'Shabbos l'tashlumin. The B'choni ben Akana holds that in Kippur, which is koros, is the same thing as Shabbos as far as payment goes. The same way if he would have burnt down somebody's barn on Shabbos, he's pater because he's chayiv skila together with the payment, so the payment gets knocked down. So too, if you burnt down somebody's barn on Yom Kippur, so he's pater for the payment because he's chayiv koros for making that fire. Shabbos was chayiv b'nafshe pater ben hatashlumin. Yom Kippurim is chayiv b'nafshe pater ben hatashlumin. That's all of the B'choni ben Akana. Just like Shabbos, when he gets a death penalty, so he's pater from payment. So to Yom Kippur, since he has a death penalty, even though it's heavenly death, also he's pater from payments. So that's what would be our Mishnah. We don't paskin like that, but we paskin that is only pater from tashlumin if it will be a earthly death penalty, not if it's heavenly.
If you look at the situation, he's been killed, right? The person got for deaths. He's not going to have to make many money to pay anything else.
It has to do from the Yerusha. It has to do. What do you mean? From the Yerusha also, if the money, he has to pay before the money that he has to pay for it. His money has to pay for the damages that he did, even though he's going to get killed. But the truth is, even if he doesn't get killed, Chayv Misa Shogeg Peturin, that even if he did it b'shogeg and he did a death penalty, he did something, I made a fire on Shabbos b'shogeg. He didn't know that it's Shabbos. But this concept of kamei b'drabin would also pater him from the money because it was a death penalty issue. It's a capital crime, even though it wasn't a capital punishment. So that has to do with the payment. Tananas, we got the Mishnah. Kol Chayv, the more goes into another subject, also about the payment over here. Kol Chayv, not about the payment, I'm not sure, maybe not about the payment. Kol Chayv, Krisa, Shalaku, and Niftu, the Krisa. So a different subject. It says anybody has Chayv koros, and he got Malchus. So Malchus is any love, any negative commandment that somebody transgressed intentionally with Edim and Asra. so he's chayiv malchus. He's also chayiv chorus for some of them. Some of the chayiv, not some malchus is not chayiv chorus, but all chorus is chayiv malchus. Means he did a negative commandment, so he's chayiv malchus, and some of them is chayiv chorus. It's only going to be chayiv malchus if they didn't told him that he's chayiv chorus. If they didn't said if he didn't know that, so he wouldn't be chayiv malchus. He has to have been warned. But here it says anybody is chayiv chorus, and he got malchus because they even told him, Rabbi, if you're going to do this, you're going to be chayiv malchus, and he got malchus. Niftu with the he's part of chorus. Means in heaven they erase the punishment because he got punishment in this, even though it's only malchus, it wasn't death. But if he got malchus, he's part of chorus. He says the drasha. I'm not sure what the drasha is exactly. He says that your brother, after he gets malchus, he became embarrassed, he became shamed. Maybe the drasha is going to be v'nikla v'nilka. Maybe there's a drasha say malchus over here. Once he gets malchus, he's like your brother, and it's not no difference. He's not chayiv anymore chorus, even though he was chayiv chorus. But once he gets malchus, he's part of chorus. This is Rabbi Hanani ben Gamliel. A new Allah. We didn't talk about that. We finished this subject about the payment already. Our Mishnah holds like the Chone ben Akana. That's one subject off about come to be dropping. New subject.
Would just be because of the pasuk, not a svora.
Right, not a svora. That's
not because he got some punishment.
Right, that's to be a pasuk. So that's the pasuk. Once he gets malchus, he's part of chorus. That's a question about in heaven. In heaven, he's part of chorus. Rabbi Yochanan says that Chachamim argue on Hanani ben Gamliel and hold that even if he got malchus, he's still chayiv chorus. Rabbi Yochanan said so, but he didn't prove it. Ami Beirab Tanina. Rava said in the name of Beirab that we have a Mishnah. I'm going to prove from a Mishnah that the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Hanani ben Gamliel and hold even if he gets malchus, he's still chayiv chorus. Why? Our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says no difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur. That Shabbos is earthly punishment, and Yom Kippur is not an earthly punishment. If you don't like Rabbi Hanani ben Gamliel, if our Mishnah would have held like that, so Yom Kippur is also an earthly punishment. It's true. If the Mishnah would have said this is Misa, this is Chayiv Misa, and this is Kores, that would have been true. There would have been such a difference, but it doesn't say that. It says this is b'dei adam, this is by man, and the other one is chorus, the other one is not by man. But if you hold that once he gets malchus, he's not chayiv chorus, so it's also by man. It's not going to be man, the capital punishment. It's going to be corporal punishment. That person gives him malchus, and then there's no more chorus anymore. If you hold that every time he gets malchus, he doesn't get the chorus goes off. So then both of them is b'dei adam. This is going to be capital punishment. This is going to be corporal punishment. But both of them is b'dei adam. Both of them are earthly court. So since our Mishnah says that Yom Kippur is not considered an earthly punishment, it must be that there's a chorus, regardless. Even if he gets malchus, he still gets a heavenly punishment. But Nachman says it's not necessarily so. You can't prove from our Mishnah. It could be our Mishnah argues on a whole different point altogether. And that's why he says that it's always going to be a heavenly punishment, not because of this particular point that does the malchus take off the chorus or not. It could be that our Mishnah holds like a bitzchak. He in general holds there's no malchus in the first place. I said that every time he's chayiv malchus, a chayiv chorus, he also did a losa say he's chayiv malchus. But that's not so simple. Some hold that it's only chayiv malchus on an aver that doesn't have chorus. But an aver, which is a severe aver that has chorus, there is no malchus. Even if Adam told him you're doing an aver that's a losa say and you're going to be chayiv chorus, it's not true. He holds that it's not going to be malchus. The Tanya of Yitzchak Omer chayiv creases b'chlal hayu, that all the chayiv creases were one general rule. But the pasuk says specifically by a chol with a sister, so it's chayiv chorus, and it's extra. We know already that all of them are chayiv chorus. To teach you that whenever there's chorus, there is, and you learn this out everything else. When that chorus, there is no malchus. So the Gemara says it's not a proof. We have to hold. We hold that there is malchus. We hold not like this Rabbi Yitzchak, I think. We hold that if they gave warning for malchus, and also we have to hold that nifti they increase us, and we do hold like Rabbi Hanan. Once he gets malchus, he is part of chorus. The also holds malchus chayiv chorus. He's part of the chorus. But the reason why the Mishnah still could say that this is b'dilah, this is the chorus, means because his ikar punishment, we tell him you're chayiv chorus. There's a way to get out of it. Once he gets chayiv malchus, the chorus goes off. But you can't be medayek from the Mishnah that the Mishnah says the punishment is the heavenly punishment, not the earthly punishment, you can't be medayik that it means that if they gave them the earthly punishment, so then the chorus remains. It could be that the chorus does go away. Just as far as the halacha about that, we paskin that chorus, the first Gemara here, this first Gemara, we hold that chorus is not enough to take off the tashlumin. Means as far as coming, it's only when punishment, not when it's not when it's heavenly punishment. And the second Gemara, we hold that if there's someone getting malchus, he is potter. Just to review the highlights of the whole daf, the Gemara talked about that they made Esther to be for all generations, and no problem about the kina because the goyim know about it. It's already recorded in the records of Madei Paras. Next Gemara talks about if it is considered Kisvi HaKodesh, and we brought a machlokus, and it comes out we hold that it is. There was a pasuk that says it has to be only 3 times, and it comes out that it's 4 times, but they found the remes because it says Ksov, Zos, the Koran B'Sefer, and that's going to be 3 times. That the Ksov is going to be everything it says in the Torah, and the Zikaron is what's in the Nevi'im, and the Sefer still remains to be written in Megillah Esther. The more brings machlokus of Tanoam, if which things are considered the Chav Dalet Sfarim, and we come out that all of them, all the Chav Dalet are. There wasn't machlokus about Koheles and Shir Hashirim, but we pass that all of them are considered, and Esther also. The Gemara says about Esther was written by Ruach HaKodesh. The author had Ruach HaKodesh. There be many proofs. Some of them the Gemara disproves the fact that they knew what Haman is thinking and how Mordechai found out, and if there was a biza, if everybody like that. Esther, all these different points. So the Gemara is at the end. Another other proofs which Shmuel said was the best. The fact that they upheld in heaven agreed to the issue of Megillah Esther. So Kimul Amala, that's Ruach HaKodesh. Also, the Gemara says at the end the fact that Megillah knew that the holiday form is never going to be abolished, never going to be forgotten. So that also shows Ruach HaKodesh. As far as Mishlach Manas, 2 to 1 person, Matanas Lavyonim, 2 to 2, 1 to each. And the Gemara says some stories about Matanas Lavyonim, maybe talk about here meat and wine. If that would be enough, was wine enough? Maybe there might be a cigar over here. And some Agadata about sending a rich person should send according to his means, not a poor man's kind of Mishlach Manas. And more about the sweet and the sharp. I don't know what to learn out of that. The Gemara brought down 2 sayings about that. The poor man doesn't know that he's hungry and there is room for dessert. And Machafi Sudasai, about switch Sudas, Rambam says on the same year, you can give each other Shalach Manas and both you are Yotze, the Den of Chai, the Nishla Basuna de Loyada, and the story of Rabban of Zera, and means exactly what nice. So that he has it 40 times. He didn't know that, and the one didn't come to the meal to this learning in the morning because they were having the Suda. And you have the Shabbos Salach Nefesh Bovat. The Gemara says Machshir Chol Nefesh is Machlokes. That be the whole Machshir Chol Nefesh that you could not have done before Yontif. You are allowed to do, and that's how we paskin. The Gemara says Lachem and who and Shabbos and Kippur. The Gemara says Shabbos is skila. Yom Kippur is Kodesh. The Gemara talks about 2 subjects. One is about Kom Levi Rabbeinu. We do paskin that Kom Levi Rabbeinu is only on a capital punishment of Bezdin, not a heavenly punishment. Chorus is not on Kom Levi Rabbeinu, but Malchus he is potter from the chorus. Yes, you go ahead, everybody.
I'm just trying to understand. You have 40 days to come out of the kiss. Not to remember. It should be available. It should be like.
Yes, you go ahead, everybody.
Have a good day.
Back in a few minutes.
Who died?
Hello. That's Shaul.
Shalom.
Shaul.
Shalom.
Right. Has he finished, Rabbi?
Now we finished. We just finished the shiur. Now we're going to start again in another minute. We'll start a different shiur on Pirkei Avot.
How do I make it go slower and record it if I can't make the time that you do it?
So there, let's close
There's
the recording.
record, but it's I pressed it, nothing happened.